This is going to be a super fun episode. So now we are bringing back Joshua Shultz. He's been with us before. He started his career as a photographer. He was taking photos of musicians, actors, models, anyone that he could find to work with. It's so great to have you back with us.
So awesome to be back.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
And this is going to be cool, what we're going to do here. You guys can see right behind him, he's got a whole setup. This isn't just going to be discussing lighting. He's going to show us.
One thing I wanted to do is show that lighting could be very simple. Doesn't have to be this massively complicated thing.
Yeah.
And with just one light, you can do quite a lot. So the first lighting we're going to do is I'm going to do a portrait session. And we're using this Pro Photo light. It's called a strobe, and a beauty dish, also from Pro Photo. And we're going to be shooting on our digital camera, the 5DSR. And I'm going to start with the 85 millimeter lens, which is my favorite for portrait.
Right.
So today we have our model, Anne. Anne, would you step in? All right, so first, I'm going to turn on the digital camera. As best as I can, I'm going to try to show the photos to you here. On the top here, I have a remote. It's called a hot shoe. And this is also made from Pro Photo. So when I take a photo, it syncs to my strobe. So we'll do a little test.
Boom, that worked.
Take one step back. So right now I'm adjusting the power of my strobe, how much light's coming out. So the first photo was a little overexposed.
Yeah.
So I'm having her step back a little bit because, obviously how close she is to light and how far away will affect how much light is bouncing off of her skin.
Right.
So she went back a little bit. I brought the power of the strobe down a little bit. And I brought my aperture up a little bit because I have a certain level of aperture I like. My personal taste, I don't like my aperture to be too shallow. I know a lot of people like it shallow, but I like it the opposite. It's just personal preference.
What are you setting it at right now?
So right now my shutter is 1/25 and my aperture is 6.3.
Okay.
And then I also like a little warmer on the light, so my Kelvin's 6,000. And my ISO is 100. All right, so I'm pretty happy with this lighting. Let me see if I can get that close.
Oh, yeah.
Now, one thing I like to do is on the digital camera, you can click your little info button, and you can get what's called the
your histogram. Yeah, because I did have a question there. She's very well lit on that one side, but that's not blown out. You can see from the histogram.
Right.
Yeah.
So the screens on the digital camera aren't always the best reference.
Right.
So like if I'm out in the desert and I'm shooting and the sun is so bright I could barely see the screen, then I'm just relying on my eye in here and the histogram information to make sure that it's not too bright and it's not too dark.
Exactly.
And I have enough in my photo so when I go home that I can do what I need to do in Photoshop.
A histogram is an amazing tool in a digital camera. There's no question about that, and we all have to use it.
What's amazing, too, about the histogram is even though the name is kind of scary, like it's going to be this big scientific thing, I watched one YouTube video, 10 minutes, and I knew so much about it, and ever since then, my entire photography career changed.
Yeah.
So it could be very simple. And again, a lot of things in photography, a lot of the basics, you can obviously get into lots of the technology behind it and the science and get easily overwhelmed. But if you start out with just the basics, and as soon as you learn something that's basic, my advice is to then go and apply it immediately so that you get the information and then you see it in the physical universe.
Yeah.
For me, I retain the information and then I can create art. But if you sit there and you just read words for months and you never do anything with it, for me personally, I don't necessarily retain it. So I advise anyone that I'm teaching to learn a couple basics and then go use those until you fully get it, and then go to the next step.
That is such good advice. We have one question already. Well, you might as well take it up from Stephen. Do you not like to tether, or what's your preference on that?
I actually I have a tether cord for my 1DX, but my 1DX is currently in the shop being fixed.
Aha.
So I'm trying out the 5DSR, and I just don't have the cord for it.
Okay. But you prefer tethering if you can?
I weirdly prefer not tethering.
Okay.
But if I have people in the room that want to see what I'm doing, then I tether. Otherwise, for me, it depends on what you're doing. Like if I'm shooting art and it's between me and the subject, I don't like too many distractions or too many things pulling me away from having all of my focus on what I'm doing. But if I have, like, say I'm shooting a band for a magazine and their label's there and they want to see what I'm shooting, then I would tether.
Yeah. Good point.
Another question was, what's the benefit of a fixed light over a camera flash? I figured since we're talking about lighting and stuff, that might be a good time to address it.
Okay, so a camera flash, if you have the on-camera flash, there's a certain amount of power that comes out of it. It's also attached to your camera. So it can be beneficial if that's the look you want, but having a strobe is, you have a lot more power in terms of energy, and there's a million more things you could do with it. So it just depends on what kind of look you're going for. So say if I want that on flash look, and I want the light to hit like this, and I want only a certain amount of power, the flash is great. In fact, a lot of times when I shoot bands, I prefer just shooting with a flash because it gives me a certain style and look. But when I get more detailed on my art and I want more control, then I'll go to a strobe or natural light.
Yeah, just different tools for different looks. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, great.
Okay, cool. We're going to do a couple more portrait shots. So one thing I'm doing is I'm positioning her, and I'm paying attention to the light and where the light is shooting and where her face is. And for starters, I'm hitting her with a side light, and that gives me a certain look.
Yeah.
And then sometimes even with a beauty dish, I like to go directly in front of them, kind of like this. So the light is shaping from the face, and that tends to make them a little bit more flat, but sometimes that's the look I want.
Yeah, that really does change the shaping, doesn't it? The modeling. Yeah,
and then another interesting thing is in horror films, they like to light from below because it can make someone look a little bit scary or easy. A lot of times when I'm shooting for beauty, I like to come up a little bit at an angle so that the light sort of shapes them from above, and it tends to look more pleasant. So.
And Josh, do you tend to just experiment and try different things so that you've recorded that, various different shoots, shots you've taken, and then when you get into the studio, you have a variety of things to choose from?
Yeah, what I like to do is I test all the time. So with my camera and my lenses and my lights, I just play around. And it's one thing if you watch videos and people tell you what things do, but I think once you get basic understanding, you should just practice the different light with lenses, move around, and you'll start sort of feeling what you like and developing your own style. But then you'll also understand how to manipulate the looks to get what you want.
Makes sense. Well, thanks again. And thank you, Anne, if you're still there, for joining us. Really appreciate it. And hope to have you guys back with us again. Thanks again. Leave your comments. One last thing, I want to remind you guys say this with me, okay? Wherever you are in the world, remember to get out and capture your own images of life.